Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to informedplanetradio.com. I'm your host, Sonia G. We're in the live room, and tonight we are delving into the mysterious world of dreams. Are we asleep? Are we awake? Do our dreams mimic reality, or is it the other way around? And to ponder these questions and much, much more, I'm joined by my very special guest and fellow Informed Planet member. It's Christian from hackdeeper.org. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Sonia, so much. It is an honor to be on Informed Planet Radio, and I'm thrilled to join you this evening.
Great. I've been following your blog for a little while now, and it's absolutely fascinating what you've discovered. You're just blowing my mind. So what inspired you to start the blog?
Sure. So the blog actually has gone through many incarnations sort of as I went through my own personal awakening, which, just to give you a little personal context, like I started about 5 years ago. I went through a traumatic experience where basically I lost my mother to the terribly broken U.S. healthcare system. And so that gave me, sort of pause to really look at reality. And I wouldn't have known it at the time. But I think what actually turns out to happen is that you use an experience like that where there's nothing intrinsically good about the event itself to act as a catalyst where you alchemically transmute it into something that is a good thing in your life that actually has an effect that you needed, that brings you where you are now. And so it really opened my mind for possibilities that those experiences could be. And that's when you start getting those experiences, is when you open yourself up to them. And so that sort of began the political awakening, and then that became when you find out who's in control of the political and economic systems, you see that there's a spiritual dimension to it. And so that usually, if you haven't already had one, results in a spiritual awakening, and it sure did for me. And then, you have to avoid consciousness traps, which I hope we'll talk more about. But at all points in this process, I did have a blog up that was sort of speaking to where I was in the process. So it's been a great journey, and it's an ongoing one.
It certainly is. I mean, I spoke to you the other day and we were talking. I came from a very similar background myself. I too lost my mother to the medical system. She underwent cancer treatment, and it really made me ask a lot of big questions and start looking things up and looking into things that I previously knew that there was something not quite right, but I didn't really realize the extent of the trouble that we're in a way. And yes, and within asking those questions, you do go down that path of really finding out some quite horrible information, and that does lead you to ask some big questions, mostly of yourself and of the people around you and of the whole system. And again, for me, that has also led to quite a spiritual thing, which I think overall has been a really great experience.
Yeah.
So, it's good to have something good come out of the bad, and maybe that's a process we all have to go through. So explain to me, what do you mean by the term hack deeper?
Sure. So hack deeper is sort of both the process that we're all going through. It's sort of, I feel like there's just a switch in everyone that something triggers, and it sounds like we had similar experiences that triggered these things. And it's not as if you just have everything happen at once. It's just that you become interested finally in reality if you're not there yet. And then you start looking for information, you start experiencing synchronicities, whatever it is that everyone's experience is different, but the fundamental drive is there that leads you to the search for truth and to getting these things. And yeah, you're right, there is some horrific information along the way that, it's like the expression goes, the truth will set you free, but it's going to piss you off on the way. And the stuff that's going on is inhumanly bad. Everything, all of the systems that are the establishment systems are perfectly corrupt. They are absolutely, there's nothing, it could not be worse in terms of the worldly systems that are there now. So I feel like there's a natural endpoint that we seem to be reaching. But these the things that are going on are unspeakable, and so it's hard to take that in. But I think it's important to do so because that's, you need this information to inform your response. That's how you become response able. So you can now respond to what's going on in the world. And without actually really looking at what's going on, I don't think you can expect to solve the problems. So it's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. But I agree. It is a necessary part of the process is to confront these things. And through that, there is an incredible freedom that comes along with it, I think. So it's not all bad news. Now, the dream aspect of your blog I find absolutely fascinating. What drew you to looking into the dream language?
So there's tons of really cool reasons that I think dreams are fascinating. For in ancient times, for one, they were regarded as messages from the divine, and I think we've certainly lost that. Back then, it was in fact so important, and these were messages from God that you couldn't discuss or try to interpret yourself. You literally had to take your dreams to state licensed dream interpreters who were like the priest class back then,
Right.
and that turns out to be the same bloodlines that are ruling the ruling elite today. So it's these these
Oh,
same people that
really?
have absolutely these
Wow.
same people have had an interest throughout history and like sort of suppressing our ability to read these dreams, or they're doing their best. And whereas back then it was just made by fiat, it was a law, you could not interpret dreams or whatever bad things would happen. Now it's done more subtly, as is almost everything these days, through propaganda and social engineering. It was taboo in the Dark Ages because then they became messages from Satan, so you couldn't talk about dreams at all. They were your you know
Mm.
demonic inspired whatever. And I guess Freud slightly improved on that when he said, no, they're just your repressed sexual desires. But we're sort of finally regaining. I guess the Western world is slowly regaining an appreciation for what the importance of these dreams. So the reason that I think they're great, right? For one, just on a personal level, they can be tremendously informative about even your own physical state. So there's plenty of documented cases where people will have like a dream of, a heart or something, and it talks to them, or there's something weird about it. And so by day they'll go in for a normal checkup, and there's maybe some heart problem or something that the doctor notices, or some weird palpitations. And so maybe you actually are more receptive to him saying you should look into it because you had this dream. And so that's one way that dreams can actually tell you something about reality that's going on. And
I've sometimes think of it, liken it to when I dream about things and I'm mulling over things in my mind and then I dream about them that night. I think of it as like defragmenting, like you do a computer. It's like my brain is defragmenting and processing and often I will wake up with a solution to a problem after an intense night of dreaming. I find it a really quite a cathartic process. It's
yeah,
good.
absolutely. Yeah, so Freud called that day residue, and there's definitely like in studies they find that there's a first part of the night where you go through that kind of processing of memories and integrating, and like they watch they watch the dreams of mice that are running the mazes that they ran during their day, so that they're better at the maze the next day. So there's definitely like a part of sleep and dreaming that is directly building those kinds of cognitive and physical processes. And then it's in like the later stages where you go into more REM sleep that you have more of the spiritual or out of body kind of really intense and just crazy dreams, and those are, I think, more fun.
Oh, it's certainly fascinating stuff. And so, reality as a mass shared dream, I'm finding this a very, very interesting topic. And please tell us a little bit about what you found through your examination of the dream language through social media, because I think this is one of the most fascinating things about your blog.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, reality being a mass shared dream is not it's not like a new idea in spiritual circles, really. I mean, all throughout history, there's plenty of wisdom traditions that consider all to be Maya, right? All is illusion. And you also hear that echoed from Buddha, who said we should treat all experiences, we should treat all phenomena as dreamlike. And so there's sort of this understanding it with enlightened spiritual masters that it's all a dream, but no one really brings that back to, all right, well, how do we integrate that with our daily lives? What do we take from that? And so I think it's important to, if everything is a dream, then we really can build on that by sort of looking at what Carl Jung said when he described the process that an individual dreamer actually makes things appear in the dream, but they're part of himself, right? So if all around us is the dream, and we, the human race, or all of consciousness, is the dreamer, then also another common spiritual concept is true. We're all one. We're all this one mind that is dreaming reality into existence and co-dreaming it out there and experiencing it ourselves. But we get lost in our egoic presence. And in humanity's case right now, we forget that we're the dreamers. So we sort of lose the ability to control our dream. And that's what let it, in this case, be hijacked by the powers that be. But the good thing here is that the powers that be are actually what Jung described as the shadow being shadow projected into reality. And they are there ultimately to remind humanity that we're dreaming. So we're in this critical part right now where humanity's forgotten that we are one consciousness dreaming reality into existence, and that we have control over this. And so we've projected our own shadow into existence to remind us. And it's a rough ride right now, but I think we're going to get there.
I think we are too.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of hope to be had, and this is something also Indigenous cultures. You know, I'm an Australian, and it's a big part of the Australian Aboriginal landscape is about the dream time, and they have a big belief in shared dreams and the shared consciousness, and it forms a very big part of their spirituality, which I find really interesting. So
Yeah,
this is not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, the Aborigines, at a conservative estimate, have been in Australia for about 40,000 years. So we're going back a very long time to the understanding of how dreams can create and shape our reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your question about the dream language, what I've done lately on the blog, in the spirit of, trying to sort of analyze, which is the blog in its most recent incarnation is really focused on analyzing the memes and symbols and archetypes that are being pushed out by the establishment media, because they are informing our subconscious experiences, which is then making stuff appear in our dreams. And that's why I've started collecting dreams from Twitter and other social sources, so we can follow this flow of things. So I can give you an example, which I think is a fun one, because the example is around the symbol of the gates of hell, which is not something that you would regularly expect to see, like in the headlines if you're just opening up CNN.com or whatever, something very mainstream.
No, not at all.
yeah. So I feel like it's a good one, because it's not like we should have very many false positives here. So last summer, we did see it in mainstream headlines a few times, actually. First, Hamas warned that an attack on Gaza would result in the opening of the gates of hell. And that printed in every Western, Reuters pushes it out, and so it's printed basically across the world. Then a few weeks later, Israel did launch that missile attack on Gaza. And so Hamas, announced that indeed now Israel had opened the gates of hell. Within weeks of this, and it sort of rings the bell that also gets printed. Everyone just sees this going on, and it's read by newscasters across the local news, and everyone sort of hears, and it just goes into everyone's subconscious at the same time. And so weeks later, this bell is rung again when Joe Biden gets up and announces that the United States will follow ISIS to the gates of hell. And so again, It's just sort of, you don't see this
like an echo almost.
It's very bizarre. And so this is sort of a nice isolated incident, because we can see this just be invoked. And it was, we have seen depictions of the gates of hell, and the most memorable one for me at least was with What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, where he and Cuba Gooding Jr. walk right up to the gates of hell, and it's a very intense scene.
That's a very intense movie.
yeah, it was a great movie. But that really, so then it's in our subconscious, some idea of the gates of hell. This symbol already exists somewhere in our experience, and then they start ringing that. They start sort of hitting that note, and it begins to resonate in our subconscious. And you see this because people are thinking about it. They go to Google, and Google Trends is another resource that I use. So I sort of integrate this dream data that I'm collecting from Twitter with what's going on in the headlines, and then what people are searching on for Google Trends. So after this bell has been rung a few times, you see that people start searching for gates of hell in Google, especially when Biden announced it. There's this huge spike. So people are thinking about the gates of hell. People are searching for the gates of hell. It's really active in the collective human psyche. And there were some
incredible.
It's really bizarre. I mean, there were other weird things that were going on, like iPhones, for whatever reason. The Siri voice was, if you said, "What is July 27th?" she would announce that July 27th, 2014 was the opening gates of Hades. And they fixed that after people started blogging about it. But there's another like whole segment of the population that doesn't watch what's going on politically, would be like reading about technology, and still they would be getting that same gates of hell symbology into their mind. So they really started bringing this bell around the different forms. And
my goodness, if anyone had any doubt about the power of the media and its influence over our minds and our activities, there's dead set proof of it right there. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and that's exactly, here's why that's exactly right, is that as this is going out and the bell is being rung, you see a tremendous increase in dreams about people at the gates of hell. And these aren't dreams that, people are not talking about them with, you know, very, the vast majority of these people don't seem to have any idea why they're dreaming of the gates of hell, right? It's people saying, I dreamt that I high-fived my best friend at the gates of hell, WTF, right? So it's not like they were going through tremendous personal catharses. This is just that the meme is resonating within our subconscious. And so it bubbles up.
Subconsciously spreading.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, these people, this is mass mind control to the collective human psyche by pushing out these words and symbols through headlines and just making it resonate throughout everyone's mind. And then what happens is we start dreaming about it, and then weirder yet, and this is where it just gets out of control, it actually starts manifesting in reality. I mean, this is not a new concept either. If you actually study this, like the Buddhists called a tulpa the thought form, and if people are empowering this thought form by focusing their collective attention on it, that can actually take on a physical form, and that's called an egregore, where there's like a physical manifestation that is strictly existing because we were thinking about it and we manifested it. And so there were a few of these where it actually, in Ohio, there was a storm drain that people, crazy noises were heard, these things were happening, weird readings were going off the charts when like paranormal investigators got there. And so headlines across Ohio announced that there was a portal to hell found in a storm drain. And then like 2 weeks later, this is all over this last summer, 2 weeks later in Indiana, this was a really strange report of like children walking up the walls, and social services got there, and then eventually the police chief himself went in, and he came out sort of stunned and said, I can only describe what I found in the basement as a portal to hell. So it's not like I'm suggesting strictly that because these headlines were printed that these things happened, but it's that people have this right on the tip of their tongue because it's active in our subconscious, right? And so when they have these crazy experiences, that's what's there for them to grab and explain it as. And so it's really fascinating to watch. That's sort of the whole progression of something being printed in the media and then gaining power, being seen in dreams, and then appearing in reality.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And so one must draw the conclusion that probably the elite do know these things, which is why they spend so much time and effort on their social engineering and keeping our viewpoint fixed to what is essentially a very narrow range of ideas through the media because of all the thousands of stories and happenings around the world. We do see a lot of the same things over and over. They do like to pinpoint our focus onto the same issues over and over, and then in a way, they are possibly, manifesting reality that way. So, yeah.
They are. They've absolutely hijacked our own ability to manifest reality. And that's why we all have to do something now, is because if we continue to do what we've been doing, then we will continue to be complicit in manifesting the reality that they want. And that's the pattern that I argue we have to break out of.
Yes.
And it's a form of activism, but it's a different form of activism where it's a spiritually informed activism, because there are inappropriate ways to respond if you're insufficiently informed. And basically, I would argue that knowing that this is all one consciousness experiencing itself, knowing that this is a dream and that we have to do something to regain control of our dream, is actually it's necessary to inform the activism. So I think that's kind of easy to see even when you look at cases like just that the environmentalism movement sounds like a great thing, right? Who's not environmentalism? We all want to save the earth, but when it's wrapped around Agenda 21, which is a terribly, a devastating anti-human agenda, then it's a poison pill. You can't take that no matter how, And so it's just, and that's that gets into the way that they use language to further the mind control. But what the dreams and what you're saying is true, that this is one way to illustrate that in fact the mind control is operating not just on this linguistic and sort of controlling our perceptions level, but truly on a multidimensional level where they're controlling what is happening in the collective human psyche. They're programming us at a subconscious level. And you see this, events on the world stage are scripted very carefully to evoke deep subconscious reactions. And so yeah, I mean that's why I hope that Hack Deeper can be there to help people, because I think the only way to not fuel this shadow projection is to the only inoculation against what's going on is to really understand the process, that it's all what's happening in the world is actually happening within you, and when you appreciate that, then you perceive the enemy as actually the catalyst that humanity needs to wake up.
So we're really all a microcosm of what's happening around us, and once we elevate our levels of awareness, and looking at the activism movement, there's plenty of people out there. One springs to mind is Alex Jones. They bring you to a certain point of awakening, and they just keep you there. They keep you stuck there in that angry. Everything's gone wrong, and they're all out to get us, and it's all terrible, and they keep you in that angry, yelling kind of psychosis, which actually keeps you stuck in the same paradigm as what you're trying to oppose, in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Exactly.
if I'm stating that correctly, but it's not really helpful at the end of the day. Being an angry person going around pissed off at the world is not going to do anybody any good. And now we are seeing proof through these ideals of what you're showing me through your blog. It's been a reassurance for me that we do have power, and we are able to turn this around a different way than taking to the streets with guns and having a revolution or something like that, which will never work in a million years anyway. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I find this really quite reassuring, and it's elevating me and driving me on to really live my life on my terms as much as I can, and for me to make better decisions on how I react with other people and what I do with my everyday life, and really helping me stick to my guns as far as doing what I think is morally responsible.
That's right.
So
Because when you change your beliefs in the dream, you see that change manifest in the dream around you instantly. And I think that's true in reality too. That's the realization that needs to be had, is that as soon as I change my behavior and do whatever it is I've been thinking of doing, but I didn't want to quit my job yet, or I was worried what people might think of me. No, this is the time when all of us have to do that one thing, where we're all uniquely creatively positioned somehow to deliver the antidote to what's going on and spread the word. It's largely, I think, an educational endeavor to spread the word about what's going on. But
yes.
that's the decision that needs to be had individually, and it's just once you've had, it's a great element of faith that comes once you get there.
Yeah, it is, and I just think I hear a lot of excuses that people go, oh well, you're not going to make any difference, and oh, what does it matter, and this power, we're up against something so huge, you can't do anything, and I think that's so sad if people feel like that, because we can do so much, the power within ourselves, and as corny as it sounds, it is extremely corny, but change thyself first. We really do. The answer lies within the individual. Ultimately, I think we really do need to change ourselves, change our language to ourselves, change our messages to ourselves, and really start visualizing what we want. We know what we don't want, but we also need to use that positive visualization to head us in a new direction and not just fall down these holes all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and it speaks to everyone in a different way. I think this is why I emphasize the importance of getting informed about what's going on, because once you get informed, like we said, it's gonna it's gonna piss you off on the way, but then it resonates in some way with you, with whatever your background has been, with what your passions have been, and now still are, with whatever the experience or experiences that got you to the point of sort of opening up to the truth of reality in the first place. So all of these things, will speak to what you're going to do, and that might be like look at Tesla and free energy stuff, or investigating hyper efficient aquaponics. Those are both awesome sufficiency things that get us off the grid. Or I think it takes a different, or doing a radio show. It takes a different form for everyone, but there's something that we all know we could be doing or we should be doing, and it's the time. It's the time to do it.
It's
We
the
got to wake
time.
people up. Yeah.
Yes, seize the day, get out there, even if it's a small something, whatever you feel. Everyone's got a little idea. When you start engaging with people, everybody's got a little idea about something that they could do that they've been thinking about. So, act on it, people. Don't be shy. Get out there.
I
So
mean,
so
every go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so how deep does this mind control go? I mean, it's incredible stuff that what is being spread out through the media. I mean, I don't watch television or read the paper, and I really work hard to avoid doing so because I've realized how much it actually influences my thoughts and now even my dreams. So this mind control that's being forced on the population, more or less, people are really not that aware of it. And I think it's important for us to start drawing attention to how powerful this stuff is.
Yeah.
Really, what do you think about that? How deep do you think this mind control goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very deep. I think, as we were saying, it's a multi-dimensional mind control where you've even before birth sort of been able to control what information gets to a person and what their perceptions of the world are, and then at the same time you're literally controlling what they are ability to their own manifestation ability is under control because of what you've programmed them to believe. And reality is very much a function of your beliefs. So when you're programmed with what they want you to believe, then you are manifesting what they want you to manifest. And so it's in this way that the cryptocracy has literally captured and weaponized the human psyche by what they're able to put in to our subconscious through this massive control grid that's built around the world now.
Mm. And when I was reading your blog, you've tipped me onto something that I'm really interested in. I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly. Watiko. Is it Watiko?
It is absolutely.
Is the Watiko psychosis, which I've read today, is being described as the greatest epidemic sickness known to man, and this has been known about for quite a long time, hasn't it? For a
Absolutely.
couple of thousand years. So, can you explain to our listeners just a little bit about what Watiko is?
Sure. So Wetiko was originally, it was as you say, indigenous term that was sort of describing the psycho virus that could take control of particularly the European man that was coming. That they literally would value things and material value more than the people around them. And so there was a virus that was constantly hungry for more, for this materialistic craze. And it turned them into cannibals to the extent that they would kill each other for their belongings. And so they described this as a wetiko, someone who was controlled by this greed and was a cannibal. And so there's a great guy by the name of Paul Levy who builds upon Jack Forbes' work. Jack Forbes is the guy who actually went out and talked to the indigenous people and documented this in the first place. And he wrote a book called Columbus and Other Cannibals, and it's sort of the first Western instance of where you see Wetiko anyway imported into Western literate, whatever the Western mind. But Paul
Yes.
Levy takes that and builds upon it from the integrating it with the dreamlike nature of reality, and sort of pointing out from the Jungian standpoint that the Wetiko virus is actually the embodiment of the self that is manifesting through all of us. It is the Wetiko virus is what is needed to let humanity know that we are dreaming all of this into existence.
Wow, it's mind blowing stuff. When I was reading about Watiko and turning it as far as going into cannibalism, the story about Easter Island sprang to mind because something along those lines happened on that island. Something very mysterious definitely happened on that island.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally did turn to the population going from 100,000 down to 20,000. They literally did kill each other off. And that sort of sprung to mind as the most extreme example I could think of the Wetiko virus spreading. So, yeah, it's really fascinating. I encourage anybody who's after a good read to look up Wetiko. And what was the gentleman's name you just mentioned?
It's Paul Levy, and he does a much
Paul
better job
Levy.
than I could at articulating exactly what this psycho spiritual disease is and how it manifests through all of us, through our psyche when we cease to become aware that we're all living this mass shared dream. It's when we even temporarily just forget that for a second and think, oh, that guy over there is a whatever, is a loser, and accidentally forgotten that we are one and the same person.
Yes.
And so that's when you very narrowly open yourself up for doing, the kinds of things that are being done, unfortunately, on a mass scale in the world right now, and that we need to stop doing to fix the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and I've actually had an example of that this week with I don't know, just some people bring out the worst in you. Do you? I don't know. I've had that happen to me this week, and I said to my partner, I just don't like being around that person because they have an effect on me, on my energy that draws me into something, and I don't like the person I become around them. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I was reading some of Paul's writings about Watiko, I thought, oh my goodness, it's so true. You do have to use it as a mirror to your own behaviour, really, and be careful that you don't catch the virus kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really recommend looking up that those articles I read were really, really interesting, very interesting. And we've heard the term psychic vampire. So that's a similar concept of the psychic vampires, the people that come in and they just kind of like suck you with energy.
Yeah, and it's not, and we need to have compassion even for these people, even for the people that are energy vampires around us, or for the ridiculous psychopaths that are actually in the powers that be. That these are just people that are stricken by this virus. That
Stricken by the virus,
it's
yeah.
it's acting. Paul mentions it's acting as a tapeworm within them, which actually, like, it gets inside you and it secretes chemicals that make you crave what it needs to survive. And so you start eating whatever the tapeworm is telling you to get it. And so this virus is informing their actions and their very experience, and they've lost control, of what's going on.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So, how can we avoid consciousness traps that keep us in this paradigm that are leading us down the wrong path? How can we sort of better ourselves? And have you got any tips there, Christian?
Well, I think you were right when you identified Alex Jones as sort of like one of these consciousness traps, right? So he's someone who does dole out a lot of information, and you have to value that this is sort of woken up some amount of the population, but at the expense, it seems, of trapping a lot of them, a good subset, in that fear consciousness, where they're just mad at the New World Order. And what we see there is just that it's another example of us versus them, which, like we just said, is the essence of the Wetiko virus. When you fall into that
Yes,
divisive, uh, uh, polarized mentality, then you've lost the battle.
you
And so
have.
Alex, yeah, and so Alex does that, and there's a portion of his audience that, or just people in general, that find spirituality, but it's so very carefully controlled that spirituality is associated either with religion, which is obviously a highly controlled sort of weird thing that's built up over history now and is still relevant because it captures some people today, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's lingering. And then the New Age movement, which is it's like the CIA's MK Ultra writ large version of a religion that says if you have a spiritual experience, and the world religions are so like dry by now that they don't even really describe a lot of spiritual experiences, then here fall into this New Age movement over here, which says only think about love and light, and don't think about the darkness, and that way you'll avoid manifesting more darkness. And so that's a very polarized way of thinking also, but and that's why it actually is equally a consciousness trap, because whereas the first level, the fear consciousness, has you thinking it's us versus them, and I need more guns, and I need to stock up on, that's feeding you, me versus the system, and that's a fighting mentality, feeding the dualism.
Yes, exactly.
And in the love versus light, it's us versus the dark, and let's try not to think about it. And it's actually it's equally bad, right? It's the same. You're still fueling the shadow projection that is the Batigo virus that we're trying to identify. And it's only really when you identify it but don't fall into it that you win the battle. And that's what we need to get all of humanity to do.
Yes, it's about finding balance and some equilibrium in this crazy world, which is it's not an overly easy thing to do. And I know for myself personally, you have days where you're cruising along and you're thinking, right now this is good, there's positive change happening, and then the next day you can wake up and just feel really that it's all a little bit hopeless. But it's so. Have you got any tips? How can we stay positive throughout this journey? Have laid any thought to that, Christian? Do you do anything in particular to keep your spirits up and to keep cruising along a good path?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that what we're seeing is exactly what it would be like to be among humanity as we go through the recognition that we're in a mass shared dream. What we're experiencing is exactly that. I feel more human and more alive than I ever have because that's what's going on and that's what I'm a part of. And so the optimism comes from knowing that, we're going to win because there's no alternative. And when I say win, I just mean that humanity has to figure this out, and what's going on is that we're all getting to the point gradually where we make that decision. Whatever we've been holding off on, today is the day. And there's a great quote from Fred Allen Wolf, who says that he's a quantum physicist who then became a shaman, and he came back and said in an interview this quote that I really like. He said, "Life is kind of like being in a play. You can sort of go along with things, or you can really get into the part. And when you when you look outside of what's going on in reality, every alarm bell that we can imagine is ringing. Every single, there's poison in the air, in the food, in the water. Nuclear reactors are spewing radioactivity. There's very little else that I would encourage anyone to ever imagine that could go wrong at this point. We should be fully awake. So the
Mm.
alarm is going off. Some of us are waking up, and some of us are waking up enough to actually get out of bed and start doing things. But it's pretty extreme out there, and so it's clear to me that this is what it looks like right when we all get our acts together and really figure things out. Because it's
Mm.
getting to the point where it's now or never, and so it's great to watch.
It is now or never, but there is so many positive signs
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
even from a couple of years ago, things are changing really, really fast, and it's really quite exciting. I think that we're also, despite as you said, things being about as bad as they can be in many aspects, we're also living at a very, very exciting time throughout history because we're seeing so much change happen so quickly, and we've got the possibility of a bright future in front of us if we can really seize the day and start working on this positive visualization and taking some positive action and helping our fellow man a little bit more. I
Mm-hmm.
think we have got the opportunity to really shine brighter than we ever have before. So that's really exciting too. I mean, imagine being stuck back in the Middle Ages where nothing much changed for like 700 years. I mean, we are
Yeah.
seeing enormous changes around us going on, and all kinds of movements spawning, and this is despite all this heavy social engineering, and really the elite must be working overtime to keep things in check at the moment, I think, because it's like things popping up everywhere. We're seeing all these people suddenly getting interested in growing their own food again, and people getting into activism, and people starting their own radio shows, and all these
Mm-hmm.
things that are just being manifesting all around us. So it's really a very, very exciting time.
Absolutely, yeah. In a lot of ways, we're really privileged, like you said, to be here now, because we are able to be informed, which is something new relatively for humanity to have access to the kind of information we do at our fingertips now, um, and we have the opportunity to witness this rate of change, and it's surely been exponential, and I expect will continue to be. So we're, let's hang on for the ride.
Absolutely. Hold on to your hats, folks. It's all going crazy. It sometimes feels like it is all going crazy, but I think it is an exciting ride, and I'm pretty excited to wake up every day and see what's happening around me, and watch all these things coming to light. I mean, 10 years ago, nobody even knew what genetically modified food was, and now we're getting this huge movement of people really taking positive action. So it's not all bad news. Now, I think we might be ready for a break. I'm not sure if Fred's around. Fred, are you there? I think we might have lost Fred, so we'll press on regardless. So tell me, what is one of the most crazy things that has popped up along your journey, along the way, exploring the world of dreams, Christian? Is there one specific story that springs to mind of something that just really blew your mind?
There was one there was one dream that I nominated as the Hack Deeper best predictive dream of 2012, and
Oh.
I don't have it just because it stood out so much. I don't have it in front of me, but it was someone that lived in the United Kingdom saying, I dreamt last night that Ebola broke out in the UK, and we all had to, hang out in Sweden. And lo and behold, like 4 hours later, it went out over the news wire that Ebola was found in Scotland. And so basically, the dream became, she had the dream, and then it was totally announced in the mass press within hours. And I think she was a little shaken at that, but that was just, it was insane how quickly that one manifested. Yeah. So I would say that, while we get Sonia back, I think there are some expressions that come to mind that sort of describe what's going on and that resonate for me that I would like to share with you. And those would be trust in Allah, but tie up your camel. And then you also hear call on God, but row away from the rocks. And both of those, I think, suggest that we need to have faith. We need to believe that positive action on our parts is going to result in the right outcome. But we've also got to take that positive action.
Informed Planet Radio.
Informative talk back.
Special guests.
The truth behind the lies. Your input.
Your music.
Our planet.
My planet.
IP Radio.
Welcome back to informedplanetradio.com. I'm your host, Sonia G. We're in the live room. I have my special guest here, Christian from hackdeeper.org, and we're talking about dreams. Now, Christian, tell me a little bit about revelation of the method.
Sure. So the revelation of the method is something that something that we've been describing tonight a bit already, but we haven't actually called it out as that. It's the process whereby you're sort of telling someone what you're doing to them as you do it. And when you're talking about sort of a sociopathic way of doing things, this is called normalizing in the psychological world. But when it's done by the system at large, it's known as revelation of the method. And it's a very advanced form of mind control. If you tell someone I'm poisoning you right now as you give them something, but they eat it anyway, they are doubly enslaved, right? They don't even try to protect themselves from what you're doing to them. And you see this all over. The most recent example actually happened this week at the South by Southwest conference in Austin. There was a McDonald's tent that was giving away free McDonald's food, but they were surrounded by this weird tent design that had like cartoon skulls on it. And it's really hard for me to imagine any like artistic merit that this had other than broadcasting. Look, this is not,
Oh my
food is not good for you. It's really bizarre, and it's worth.
That
it's
is
worth
really
at.
bizarre
It's worth looking at.
Totally overt. There's a perfect example of revelation of the method right there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So
it's a pattern. Once you know what to look for, then you see it, and it's hard to watch. For the people who aren't aware of what's going on, it's very effective because it pushes them further into not caring about reality, because it hurts and it's hard to see, but it just pushes their border for what they tolerate even farther. And the people that are aware of what's going on are just, we're astonished by how in your face what's going on is. And it's a very effective message to both crowds.
It's hidden in plain sight, taken to a whole new level, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, skulls on McDonald's. And actually there was a funny little video done by Truthstream Media, who, this is another example using McDonald's, and she was saying, have you seen the McDonald's website? And you go to the McDonald's website and it actually had all these horrible questions. It was like a Q&A about their food, but it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It was, why, are there really worms in your meat? And this is on the homepage of their website. So it was like they were exactly what you said, the revelation of the method. They were actually drawing attention to negative things about their product, and then just, slapping some glossy propaganda over it that was obviously that. And it was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. So if you're interested, you can head over to the McDonald's website and have a look, or look up Truthstream Media on YouTube and have a look at that particular clip, because it is a brilliant example.
Yeah, it's a sociopathic behavior, and it's as if the system is compelled to tell us what it's doing. But it's dangerous because those of us who are aware of what's going on can point at these things and hope to break through the sort of the mind control that's still working on the majority, unfortunately, of people. I think that's why it can potentially be used as a powerful weapon against them. But we need
Yes.
to, this is just more reason to emphasize that we need to be, each of us is responsible for, I would say, doing as much as we can to put out that little bit of information. And we don't have to get someone to completely change their mind about the way, the nature of reality today. It's not going to happen. But you have to put out these little seeds, because as if we all start doing this, then as our friends and whoever walk around, they just get these little bits and pieces, and for them it becomes a synchronicity, right? Why is everyone suddenly talking about these things? Maybe should I go look this up? And if we can manage at that point to flip that switch that turns them into, I got to figure out what's going on here, then they're on that path.
That's right. And it is such a personal journey. You can't do it for other people. You have to really, what you said about planting the seeds, that is exactly what you need to do. You can't just go blah, 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 all this information to people, because I've done it when I first started waking up. I was frantically trying to notify everybody of what was going on, and they just think you're a completely crazy person. You have to just subtly plant those seeds to actually inspire that person to want to go and look into it for themselves. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is doable, and it does make it it's a lot easier way to deal with it than trying to just, load all this depressing information onto people all at once. It's much better if you can just give them an idea to go and look up something themselves and actually be interested in it. And then they really will engage in it and start looking into some information. And, that's a little thing I try and do, just engaging in conversation with people. I wait for a little opportunity to mention something, whether it's about genetically modified food, or how they use television to mind control us, or you just look for a little opportunity and you just plant a little seed, and often I've found that I get a very good response if I can be a little bit more subtle like that. You often find that people go, that is really, oh yeah, they do put a lot of rubbish on the television, and there's an opportunity there to get your point across without freaking people out too much, which is what we need to do. And we have to just keep trying. We have to keep trying, no matter how hard it is, because, there's a lot at stake here.
Yeah. And those are the opportunities we all have to be identifying constantly, whether they're just the daily, as you say, conversational seed plantings, or, starting a radio show and collecting dream data from Twitter to draw attention to, quantitatively, the way we can see what's going on in the subconscious. Whatever it is that speaks to your own experience, and you'll know it. You'll know it when you see it, when you appreciate what's going on, then it's going to motivate you to do something, and that whatever that is it's going to be helpful. So it's got to, and the most important part is that you start now.
Yes, don't delay. Start today. And while we're at it, I just would like to give your blog a little bit of a plug. Please visit hackdeeper.org. I guarantee you're going to have a wonderful journey of discovery, reading some of the wonderful things that Christian has discovered and written about. And there's some really great quotes and some links onto other things. It really is quite a wonderful journey of discovery that I'm still enjoying. I'm excited when I see you in my inbox, Christian. So make sure you do visit hackdeeper.org and subscribe to Christian's blog. And he's got some very powerful insights there. Now, Christian, can you give me another example? What's another social language theme that we've seen popping up that's been echoed throughout social media? I remember you saying something about vampires.
Sure. Thanks for that, Sonia. First of all, I appreciate that. And another one that's really interesting is the way when you study the language and the things that are resonating in dream language, you sort of start to understand some of the things that are going on in reality backwards. So like one of the things that I've sort of taken in but hadn't really thought about was just the perpetual zombie thing and the obsession with vampires, right? And we're all sort of just vaguely aware that the CDC was putting out things about zombies. There's plenty of training exercises done in local and like militaries that are dressed in the people versus zombies. And so this is something that's been employed by the establishment and empowered by putting out these headlines that talk about zombie attacks. And there was, of course, a huge surge in Hollywood of zombie films and of vampire films. And you see tons of TV, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So these are both memes that have just been just pushed really hard by every form of media out there, and you definitely see a lot of dreams about these two symbols, especially around Halloween. Actually, there's a large spike in these sorts of things.
But yeah, I'm not surprised because zombies and vampires just seems to be every second movie is about zombies or vampires. And even I had some friends visiting and they had their small children with them. And, you know, these were quite young girl, about 6, and they were playing on their iPads and they had some amazing game that was meant to be educational. But the theme again was zombies and vampires popping up everywhere, and I thought, what is it with these zombies and vampires? They're really trying to program us with something here because it's so overt. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it goes back to your question of how deep the mind control is, and you see it there. You see it when you're looking for these things. Then the more you see them, that even as a child, your subconscious is being suggested to have vampiric creatures that take the energy life force from others and sort of seduce the victim in the process. And what's weird is that these what we think of as fictional symbols are actually employed within the script of world events on the stage. So one of my favorite examples is continuing this vampire thing. Is that when there were protests exploding for the first time in Ferguson, ISIS, there was, for some reason, there was this headline that went out of Reuters, and so it was picked up by media around the world, saying that ISIS has pledged vampire soldiers who drink blood to support the Ferguson protesters.
What?
And I saw this. I promise you could still go out and find this, and it was.
Oh, I've got to look that up. I haven't seen that one.
It's such a crazy invocation of these symbols that it's so densely worded that there's not even any content. It's just boom. Here's ISIS. Here's a vampire. Here's some blood that's being consumed, and here's the Ferguson protest. And it's all wrapped up in this. I mean, it's just insane.
That is insane, and how they've even managed to normalize all those topics and put them into a headline is pretty incredible stuff.
And so that's when I say that seriously, when I say that events on the world stage are carefully scripted to elicit specific reactions deep within our subconscious, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. You can see it when you look at these kinds of headlines.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So where to from here? How do we stay positive? I like to end the show on a positive note. So what's our tips? I mean, I must admit, I do find it kind of fun looking into this stuff now that I see it from a different perspective. I'm able to laugh at it a lot more and just say, look at this. This is absolutely ridiculous. I just saw this video on the dailymail.co.uk of ISIS guys doing some kind of promo, they were abseiling down a building and throwing bombs. And I mean, the whole thing was just so ridiculous theatre. I just couldn't stop laughing at it. I just thought, have we entered completely into the age of insanity where this is being put forward for us as something to be feared, and people are they're fearing it, but I think in a way they're also trying to hook people into to get supporters. It's almost like a promotion of, is it revelation of the method in doing that they're showing us these guys in all these wacky outfits leaning over cars and abseiling and doing this kind of thing. It's almost revelation of the method. They're showing us how bad this all is, but at the same time they're trying to get us. I almost wanted to join up after watching this promo. It looks so exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's fair to describe it as multi-dimensional propaganda, right? It applies for those who are just taking it in and sort of not aware of what's going on, and it's on the evening news. It just sort of, programs them subtly, and for those that are, and makes them less able to, it's an assault on their consciousness, because what they're putting out at this point is so, as you say, it's just beyond absurd. It doesn't even make sense anymore.
It is the theater of the absurd.
Yeah. So any critical thinking is just, it's deactivated when it's suggested that, among other things, that jet fuel burns steel, buildings, right? It doesn't, nothing makes sense and so that deactivates the critical thinking and people that are accepting it as reality, and it keeps pushing their borders further down. It's very sociopathic, again, behavior. And then those of us that are aware of it we're openly mocked by it. But the question was, how do we stay positive?
How do we stay positive? Apart from pointing at it and laughing hysterically, as I was doing in my local bakery the other day.
Which is critically important. So it's absolutely important that we retain our ability to laugh. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You have to laugh. And I think part of laughing it off is it's a release of getting rid of that bad energy and not carrying it and weighing it heavily on your soul. You have to laugh at it, because we do live in the age of absolute insanity. You only have to turn on your television or pick up a paper and you'll have dozens of examples of that right there. So apart from laughing, Christian, have you got any other great ideas for our listeners?
Keep absolutely still. Keep your sense of humor. And then, remind yourself that what we're experiencing, what we're seeing in the world, is exactly what is required, exactly what it looks like when we are all awakening to the dreamlike nature of reality, and when humanity is pushed to the test to realize this, by the shadow that we're projecting out into reality ourselves. So we just have to recognize it, retain the ability to laugh at it, and then act towards a better future. I like, I never thought I'd be able to say this, but Karl Rove became sort of an inspiration for me, because he said, at some journalist, he just, it's a pretty mocking thing to say, but I think it hints at a deeper truth than you usually see from these people. He said, look, folks like you are left, we call you the reality-based community. We are an empire now, and when we act, we create reality. You are left to study that reality, judiciously as you may, and while you're studying, we will act again and create a new reality, which you can also study. But we are history's actors now, and so he really tells you that they are doing the manifestation. They've hijacked the human psyche, weaponized it, and it's working against us. And that's why we have to just drop what we're doing, and follow our intuition to making the difference that we know we can make. And we're not quite there yet. We need to do it a little more seriously. But it requires, changing everything requires everyone, and it's that time. So the message from Karl Rove is, stop manifesting his reality and go create our own. Stop studying it even and create our own.
Well, that's really good advice. That's really great advice. And I think we'll wrap up the show now on that note. Thank you so much, Christian, for your time. It's been just wonderful talking to you. I've really enjoyed reading your blog. It's given me an excuse to go through every blog post and follow some of your links. So I encourage, again, our listeners to visit hackdeeper.org and have another look, because it's a fascinating world out there, folks.
Yeah, thank you again. It's been my pleasure, Sonia.
Absolutely, and I hope we can do this again soon. I'd love to have you back on the show.
It'd be my pleasure.
Okay, well, you've been listening to informedplanetradio.com. I'm your host, Sonia G. We've been in the live room chatting with Christian from hackdeeper.org. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I hope we can talk to you again soon.
Informed Planet Radio.
Informative talk back.
Special guests.
The truth behind the lies. Your input.
Your music.
Our planet.
My planet.
IP Radio.